All right. All right. Looks good. All right. I think should be all good. All right. Well, hey again, everybody. How's everyone doing today? I just wanted to take a short while to welcome all of you again to yet another wonderful webinar presentation brought to you by myself, Christopher Regan, the official Family Network on Disabilities, Parents of the Panhandle Information Network, Youth Advocate. And today, this presentation is going to be all about a brand new one that we just recently rolled out called Supported Decision Making. But real quick, before we get into that, for all of you, I just wanted to take a short while, real quick, just to explain just a little bit about myself and the wonderful organization that I'm a part of. So with that being said, thank you again, everybody, for being a part of this wonderful webinar presentation tonight. So like I said, my name is Christopher Regan, and I am the FND POPIN Youth Advocate. So basically, what that means is I am responsible for the entire northern region of the state of Florida. So what I do in my capacity as the POPIN Youth Advocate is basically I travel all throughout this northern region of Florida to all of the different counties located in this region, and what I do is I conduct special workshops, trainings, and conferences for youth and young adults with all different types of disabilities throughout the entire northern region of Florida. And the material that is contained within these workshops is specifically designed to help all of these youth and young adults with all different types of disabilities be able to have the knowledge and the empowerment to be able to become stronger, more effective self-advocates, and to help them achieve greater levels of success and independence for both themselves and their loved ones as well. So I couldn't be any more proud or honored to be a part of this wonderful organization and the work that I'm doing today. And it just makes me feel incredibly passionate and valued about just sharing everything that I do with everybody I come across. So that's a quick introduction to myself. And now, real quick, a short introduction to the absolutely wonderful organization that I'm a part of. So I am a member of the Family Network on Disabilities organization. So just some quick background information real quick. So the thing is, over the past 60 years, there have actually been many changes that have occurred in the ways that parents and professionals have actually learned to work together in order to improve outcomes for children, young adults, and everyone else living with disabilities. Perhaps, however, the most notable change has actually been a shift over time from services that have been based solely on professional expertise to services that have actually incorporated the knowledge of parents, professionals, and other family members as part of a united, coordinated planning action on behalf of children. So, the Family Network on Disabilities is the official Parent Training and Information, or PTI, center for the entire state of Florida. So, what a PTI does is a PTI shares different strategies for not only successful parent-teacher collaborations, but also how to fully participate in IEP meetings as well. So parent training and information centers are also funded through our nation's special education law, Part D of the IDEA Act, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And by national, what I'm referring to is the United States Department of Education and the Office of Special Education Programs, or OSAP. So every state in the country as a whole has at least one parent training and information center, and each one goes by a different name. So for example, actually Florida has 3 different parent PTIs that are broken up between POPIN, which is the northern region, PSN, which is the central region, and PEN, which is in the southern region of the state. So these three individual departments and programs are housed under the overall umbrella of Family Network on Disabilities. So now, just a little quick personal history on F&D before I begin today's workshop. So, Family Network on Disabilities is a national network of individuals of all ages who may be at risk, have disabilities, or have special needs, as well as the rest of their families, professionals, and concerned citizens. Family Network on Disabilities was initially founded in 1985 by a tight-knit group of parents of children with disabilities who decided to come together for mutual support and information sharing. So F&D overall is a grassroots organization for persons with disabilities and their families that is both family-centered and family-driven. So the thing that makes F&D unique among other similar organizations across the state and the country as a whole is that actually the majority of our board of directors and management staff and all of our program staff are actually parents or family members of people with disabilities or people who have disabilities themselves. So this unique perspective among all of our staff and board of directors and other professionals in our organization, definitely without a doubt, gives us a unique perspective and on exactly how Floridians with disabilities live day to day throughout the entire state, and it helps us to come up with the best ideas on how to personally help these people overall and how to direct them pretty much to achieve the maximum best result that they could use for their loved ones and themselves in order to achieve an overall better quality of life and other sources for themselves and their family members. So, thanks again, everybody. So that was a quick introduction of both myself as an employee and the wonderful organization, Family Network on Disabilities, that I am very proud and honored to be a part of to this day. So, thanks again, everybody. So, today's workshop is all about supported decision-making. So, to understand supported decision-making overall, the first place that we need to actually start at is the ability to distinguish between supported decision-making and substitute decision-making. So, real quick, what is substitute decision-making? That's the first thing. So, officially, as defined by Florida DCF, which is the Department of Children and Families, substitute decision-making is by official definition, gives guardians or advocates the right to make personal and life decisions on the behalf of the person with a disability in question. So in other words, the other people that have been designated as substitutes basically have the power to make the decisions for the person, and they, with this way, they don't actually have to take into account the person's opinions or other things on the matters. So in other words, the person with a disability doesn't really have any say or power over what decisions they want to make for themselves, because another person has that power over them. So with this, in this workshop today, we're actually going to learn about what is substitute decision-making, what is supported decision-making, and how do individuals ultimately achieve supported decision-making. So these three components are very important for the purposes tonight. So with the knowledge of substitute decision-making in mind, now we move on to basically a little more information on substitute decision-making. So basically with this in mind, who is ultimately driving the decision-making with substitute decision-making? So, well, it can actually be, anybody who's officially appointed as the official guardian or representative of the person. So it can be For instance, family members, it can be court-appointed guardians, and, basically it can actually be, anybody else who has been officially designated to have the best interests of the individual in mind, supposedly. So what decisions can these substitute decision makers make on behalf of, let's say, the person with a disability? Well, basically it can be, anything in the person's life. So it can be related to the person's health, their living arrangements, and even, their financial status as a whole. So basically with this in mind, these substitute decision makers have the power to make decisions for the person with a disability, that basically covers their entire scope of their life. So now we move on to supported decision making. So this one is actually a lot more empowered for the person with a disability as a whole. So basically, supported decision making, the official definition of this is that it gives people with disabilities the help that they need in order to make choices about their own individual lives. So these specific choices right here can actually be about, where to live, what to do during the day, how to spend their money, or even, when to see a doctor. So what does supported decision making look like? Well, on the one hand, it's actually person-centered. So what this means is that the decision-making process is centered around a person and their needs and wants. And it's extremely important to keep this one in mind, because being person-centered, it can actually provide additional supports as well. So, but this does not mean that the person with this, with a disability might need support in every single area. So, for instance, a person might do just fine in one specific area, or other specific areas, such as, taking transportation and living independently, but they might need some help with managing their finances overall. So, with this in mind, basically, the person overall leads the decision-making process, and the main part of supported decision-making is to allow the person's thoughts, ideas, and views to be heard. So a good way to do this is to actually encourage the individuals to take part in or lead the conversation about their own lives whenever possible. And you can also allow them to discuss their likes/dislikes, their strengths or weaknesses, and even their goals and desires as well. So, better quality of life. So there have been actually studies out there that have shown that people out there who use effective self-determination have basically been able to achieve a better quality of life overall. So, for example, people with disabilities might need some help to understand information about the choices that they need to make. But ultimately, once they have that information in mind, then they'll be able to make a more informed and educated decision about what they feel is the best and most important decision that will affect their life overall. So with this in mind, now we move on to the different kinds of supports that are out there. So the kinds of supports that supported decision making can provide for people with disabilities of all ages it can be many things. It can be, number one, financial advice, number two, medical advice, number three, employment advice, number four, independent living advice, number five, school-related advice, and even number six, which is personal care advice. So now, what roles can the supporter play in supported decision making? Because this is another key aspect of this. Well, basically, the overall thing is that with supported decision making, the supporter gives advice, but the person with a disability overall has the final say and makes the final decision. So a good way to actually come up with this is You can the person can draw up a pros and cons sheet. So on the one side of the pros, you can actually, encourage them to write down, their strengths and their positive attributes that they feel or can identify with themselves. And on the other side, they can write down and identify, maybe their disadvantages or their perceived weaknesses that they have about themselves that they might need, some help and input to maybe improve upon in this respect. And another thing is you can also conduct special role-playing exercises that can help to build upon this idea further. So, you can have engaged interactive discussions about, what strengths and positive attributes, the person identifies with themselves, and then, act them out. And then same with the cons or the disadvantages. And then this way, you can solidly identify which areas everyone needs help with working on while making it engaging, informative, and fun at the same time. So with that in mind, where are the different areas in the person's life that supported decision-making can be applied to? Well, the good news is that there's a large, diverse pool of opportunities and subjects that supported decision-making can be used and applied in, people with disabilities' lives. So one area that this can impact on is schools. So the way that supported decision-making can affect schools is it can improve everybody's self-determination, communication skills, and post-secondary outcomes as well. And it's not just in the schools as well, but it can also be in the home as well. So with this, it can actually positively affect, meaningful activities, medical needs, and living arrangements as well. So, but supported decision-making overall is not a solo endeavor. So the thing right here is that, the entire family can actually step in and be an extremely valuable part of helping, youth and young adults with disabilities out there to develop and hone their sense of supported decision-making. So some ways that, their family can be involved in this is they can, number one, make sure to start early. Number two, build supported decision-making components into the person's IEP or equivalent documents. Number three, allow youth and young adults the opportunities to make their own choices in their lives. Number four, allow the youth and young adults to, the opportunities to set goals and benchmarks for themselves, that are reasonable and attainable, so that they have a predetermined guideline that they can follow and then define steps along the way that they can use to ultimately reach these goals for themselves. And finally, number five, allow them the opportunity to participate in valuable life discussions about major events and perceived events in their lives. So with this in mind, obviously the family is an incredible asset in this, but youth can also use this to basically get their voice back. And basically this means to regain their sense of achievement and empowerment and self-confidence with regards to themselves and their abilities too. So with this, some ways that youth can help to get their voice back is, number one, they can attend their own IEP or equivalent document meetings. And number two, they can also give input on various other different aspects of their lives. And this can actually range from, other things like doctor's appointments, post-secondary plans, where, specifically the youth and young adults with disabilities want to live on their own eventually, also what they want to do with their own lives. And it can also help them to identify their own personal interests and, what they love to do the most and what they might want to ultimately make an enjoying, fulfilling career out of. So all of these steps right here are, some beginning steps that can lay the foundations for youth and young adults with disabilities to build and hone their sense of supported decision-making with regards to every single aspect of their lives, and the end result is that they'll have greater self-confidence and be able to achieve greater levels of success and independence for themselves with the aid of supported decision-making. So, after all that's said and done, I have a very special treat, you could say, for all of you tuning in today. So, what I have in my hand right here is a special supported decision-making tip booklet or tip sheet. So, I'll give you a minute to look this over real quick. All right. All right. And so, the best thing about this particular tip sheet right here is actually, it's extremely convenient, condensed into one page all about supported decision-making, and it's actually conveniently located on our own individual website, www.fndusa.org. So, real quick, for those of you who are tuning in, I'm just going to go over this worksheet, just real quick, just to give you an idea of basically what it's all about. So, it's supported decision-making, a tip sheet from Family Network on Disabilities. So, the top part says, what is supported decision-making? So, and then below that, it says supported decision-making gives people with disabilities the help that they need to make choices about their own lives. And then below that, you have 3 different subcategories, or just some quick examples that could be showcased there. So, number 1 is that it's, your doctor and making decisions about your medical health. And number 2, it's, it's also including living arrangements. So, making informed decisions on your living arrangements. And number 3, it also includes money. So, making decisions on how to spend your money because, it's all about you. All right. And then below that, it just has, some other quick tips on exactly what supported decision-making is. So, number 1, the person with a disability chooses a person that helps with decisions, and this is what supported decision-making is. And then number 2 is that a good supporter respects the wishes of the person with the disability. And number 3, a good supporter listens and suggests ways to make the person's wishes happen. So below that, we have some other examples of help that can include, number 1, plans for the future, number 2, helping us to get our ideas across, and number 3, helping us to keep on task despite some other distractions that might happen. And then below that, it says most supported decision-making actually happens without any special legal process. So, for example, your sister might, help you find an apartment without a special form or going to the court. So there are only a few states that have actually had true supported decision-making laws on the books, but sometimes, people decide to sign a form that lets other people know that a supporter is helping them. So these particular forms that this sheet lists is that they have names such as, it can be power of attorney, healthcare proxy, representative agreement, or supported decision-making agreement. And then, finally, it has the overall theme of what supported decision-making is all about. Like I said, with supported decision-making, the supporter gives advice, but the person with a disability basically makes the final decision. So that was a quick overview of this supported decision-making tip sheet. And actually, all of the information in this particular tip sheet was actually gathered from the Autism Self-Advocate Network, or ASAN. So, for more information on supported decision-making, you can check out their website at www.autisticadvocacy.org. That's www.autisticadvocacy.org. And, just wanted to give a shout out to them for all of the information contained in this tip sheet. And, like I said before, this tip sheet can easily be downloaded from our website at any time at www.fndusa.org. So you can download as many copies as you want and share them out with everybody else. It's incredibly convenient, easy, and incredibly knowledgeable all in one package. So just wanted to share that with all of you real quick. So with all of this information in mind from this presentation and the tip sheet as a whole, I just wanted to take a short while real quick just to present to all of you some examples on actually how I've used supported decision making throughout my life, and actually how I was able to grow and develop my sense of supported decision making, the older and more mature that I became. So, beginning at the first period of my life, as I said before, in telling my story, the very first major hurdle that occurred in my life was that I actually stopped talking completely when I reached the age of 1 year old. So, obviously I had, difficulties with communicating. So my parents basically, I guess this was more of like a substitute decision-making role, just in this case, because, it was actually my parents who decided to enroll me in special occupational language and speech therapy in order to try to help me regain the ability to speak again. So, after all this, luckily, I was able to finally regain the ability to speak normally after, several years of intensive speech, language, and occupational therapy. So that little bit ended on a thankfully high note. But overall, that personal example in my life was basically an example of substitute decision making, because I didn't have any real say on what I felt would be best to help my own personal recovery overall. So my parents basically, made the decisions on what they thought would be best for me overall. So that was just a quick example of a substitute decision-making moment that my parents, did for me in my life. So that was the beginning. And then ultimately, I have to say, the next step in my life that occurred was when I was in 5th grade in a private Catholic school. So at this period in my life, I had previously done well in the school that I had been a part of, and, was making good grades. I had some good relationships with my classmates, and everything was going, pretty good for the most part. So, but unfortunately, at this point in my life, the schoolwork that I was being given, it overall was a little harder than I'd experienced previously. So, with this in mind, my schoolwork and my grades, slowly started to become worse and worse over time. And, I started to talk with my parents about, what possibly might happen and what might be the next step for me, because I was completely dreading having to go to school every day, because I didn't think that I was good enough to, complete the work that was being given to me. So at this event in my life, I was actually beginning to take the very first steps toward building my own personal sense of supported decision making, because it was at this point in my life that I was actually starting to question, I was starting to question the things that were happening around me, and figuring out, what might be the best way to, bring it to a positive conclusion overall. So, with this event in mind, I actually, engaged in talking with my parents about what might happen next. And so all of us together ultimately made the unanimous decision to, pull me out of the school entirely and homeschool me for the rest of my 5th grade year. So thankfully, I was able to finish out the rest of my 5th grade year at homeschooling. So after this happened in mind, now there was another crucial aspect in my life that we needed to do. So it was ultimately one of the major decisions, but all of us came to the agreement that maybe further educational and psychological testing might need to be conducted for myself overall to get a better analysis on exactly what difficulties and challenges that I was facing previously, so that we could maybe avoid them in the future. So after we made this decision, we ultimately decided to enroll me in the public school system for the very first time in my life. So, ultimately, with this new sense of supported decision-making, I was able to think about, exactly what might be the best opportunity. And so I obviously knew that, private school just wasn't working out for me. So I decided to, take the risk and see what public school would be like. And the good thing about this was, after I had conducted the additional social and educational testing, it was discovered that I actually had a form of autism called Asperger's syndrome. So the good news was that this official diagnosis allowed me to actually qualify for the ability to receive my very own individual education plan, or IEP, in this new public school system that I was a part of. So, all of these instances combined together ultimately to allow me to participate in the new public school system's exceptional special education program with the help and support of my IEP document. So I'll admit that it was a little rough going at first, getting a handle on exactly, how everything would work and operate, but thankfully, as time went on, I was finally able to grasp the nuances and, the navigational abilities of exactly what services and accommodations I could use and take advantage of to help me overcome my specific challenges and obstacles that, Asperger's syndrome had presented me. So with this in mind, my sense and foundation of supported decision-making continued to grow during, my years in the public school system in middle school, so that by the time middle school was over, I had a relatively solid and firm grasp of supported decision-making and be able to actually use all of the avenues of the ESE program and my IEP document to, become successful with, my academics and social life in the public school system. So by the time I had officially entered high school for the first time, now this new sense had expanded into a new transitionary phase. So, as we all know, in high school, it's focused more on, your post-secondary goals and maybe, your ultimate goals for what you want to accomplish after you exit the school system overall. So with this in mind, basically a whole new avenue of supports and services for, the ESE program that I was a part of in high school, basically opened up, and it allowed a whole new set of opportunities that I had never even previously thought of before. So the good news about this was it actually helped me to expand my scope and my sense of supported decision-making even further than it had before by, basically introducing all these new aspects to me. So one of the most important and crucial aspects that this new transition IEP was focused on was that it actually allowed me to, basically take advantage of any kind of support and assistance from a person or an agency that I felt would be most valuable to me, in order to help me to become the most successful that I could be. So this new sense of, advocacy and support and, all of these people and agencies that I could, bring to my own transition IEP meetings and work with them all throughout my entire high school career, basically ballooned my sense of supported decision-making as a whole into something that I had never before thought possible or experienced previously. So luckily, taking all of these opportunities into account, you know, thankfully, I was finally able to graduate from high school with a cum laude with honors distinction. And, you know, you know, basically I could never have done it without, you know, the transition IEP program and all of these different supports and services from all these people and agencies that I believed personally had the best opportunities to help me become the most successful that I could be. So that's yep, that's just a overview on some personal examples on how I was able to move ultimately from substitute decision making to you know, sowing the seeds and building the foundation of and nurturing the building and supports of my own sense of supported decision making, you know, in order to become the successful person that I am today overall. So with that being said, I just wanted to thank all of you, you know, deeply from the bottom of my heart for, you know, being a part of all of these presentations that I am deeply honored to share with all of you. So, you know, before we go, I just wanted to take some time real quick just to divulge some things real quick. So, you know, no offense, you know, just real quick. So with that being said, some additional resources that all of you can take advantage of, you know, in the comfort of your own home, whenever time you want, is our own personal educational learning platform called FND University. So what FND University is as a whole is it's our special online university program that basically contains a complete list and courses of all the different workshops that we conduct out in the communities of Florida. So it's a special, you know, guide and workshop to basically help all of you out there, you know, to basically build your own knowledge and support and assistance of all of the different workshops and opportunities that we offer. So, you know, luckily, you know, it's completely convenient and it can be accessed anytime online. All you have to do is go to www.fndusa.org and just go to FND University, and you'll be able to have access to a complete list of workshops and courses that we offer. And the best part about this overall is that it actually provides comprehensive feedback, guidelines, and supports for exactly how well you are doing in your knowledge of these workshops. And all of this customizable feedback can be emailed directly back to you so that you have a full, complete transcript of exactly, you know, how you're doing, so you can measure your own progress as you go along to better understanding. So, you know, like I said, all you got to do is go to fndusa.org/FNDUniversity, and you'll be able to access all of our courses and workshops that we conduct every day out there in the communities of Florida. So with that being said, you know, I just wanted to thank everybody again for being a part of this webinar. And if you have, you know, any questions or, you know, need any assistance at all, you know, with whatever is going on in your lives, you know, I just want to let you know real quick that you can always contact and reach out to me directly. So, you know, my email is chris@fndfl.org, and my phone number is 904-377-8951. So, you know, like I said, anytime you have any questions or are requesting or needing any information about, you know, agencies or supports or anything else that you think would make your lives better, you know, just, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to me any way you want. And, you know, we'll work together to come up with the best possible solution for you, because, you know, that's what I'm here for. And, you know, that's my mission, to help each and every one of you. So, you know, thanks again, everybody, you know, for being a part of this wonderful webinar presentation. I look forward to seeing all of you again in the future again. And I hope that all of you found all of this information that I have presented to you incredibly valuable, knowledgeable, and educational. So until next time, I look forward to seeing everybody again. So take care and have an amazing week. Thanks again, everybody.